There once was a storyteller, starring Joseph Hollas and Molly Phillips. Written by Daniel Thomas. Artwork by Beattie.
Hello? Can you hear me? You must not listen to this. I'm warning you. Please, I beg of you. However you've come by this tape, be that stolen or bought or found, you must stop listening immediately. You don't understand.
I am.
Would you like some tea? It's my own special recipe. Bet you can't guess the blend.
What's tea?
It's a drink. Dried leaves with hot water. And sometimes milk and sugar.
It sounds disgusting.
Maybe. But would you like some?
No. Can we just get down to business?
If you insist.
So, I want answers. I want to know where I came from. Let's make a start. Tell me a story.
What sort of story?
One with a beginning, a middle, and an end.
A proper story, then.
A proper story.
Well, I warn you. It isn't a happy story.
Even better.
Well then. On the stroke of 12, the midnight bride awakes from her slumber. You won't believe your eyes. For the last time before the new year, the father tucked his little girl into bed. She sat cuddled up with her blankets and pillows, ready to dream of what the new year would bring. "Have you been a good girl this year?" asked her father. "Yes, Daddy, of course I have," she said. "Have you been remembering your pleases and thank yous?" "Yes, Daddy, I have." "Have you been behaving nicely at school?" Yes, of course." "Good," he said. "I think that means you're safe for another year then." The girl looked at her father. She was puzzled. "What do you mean, Daddy?" she said. Her father turned to her with a polite smile. "Oh," he said, "you don't know about the midnight bride?" The girl shook her head. Her father shut the door and sat at the end of her bed. "The midnight bride's been around since I was your age. She'd been with her partner for years, so one New Year's Eve they decided to get married. They seemed very happy together. That was until her husband killed her and their unborn child in a drunken rage. Now, every New Year's Eve her spirit roams this city, searching for all the bad children and taking them away, so she can finally have her child back." The girl couldn't sleep that night, too afraid that the woman would come for her. She awoke from her slumber, screaming for her father. He ran in and comforted her. "It's her," she said. "It's her, the midnight bride." Her father laughed lightly. "It's okay. Oh, the midnight bride isn't real." "It isn't?" "No, sweetie, of course not. It's just a silly old story." The girl looked up at her father. "Daddy," she said, "if the midnight bride isn't real, then whose hand is holding your ankle?" Terrific story, isn't it?
Yes, I suppose it is. Why did you write it?
I went to a funeral. A bad one.
You wrote something about a wedding after going to a funeral.
They both happen in a church and are equally depressing.
Whose funeral was it? I see. Wrong question.
Quite.
Okay. Let's try something different. Why did you write it?
You've already asked me that, Ffion.
No, I don't mean why did you write that particular story. I mean, why did you write something at all?
I'm a writer. It's what I always do.
What you always do?
It helps me. Pain makes the most wonderful storyteller.
I don't quite understand.
No?
Make me understand. Tell me a story.
Very well. But it doesn't have a happy ending.
Oh? A true story, then?
A true story.
Well then, storyteller, enlighten me.
When I turned 18, my mother packed a bag for me. "Of course I love you. You're my son, and I love you," she said. "But who says that I have to like you?" I picked up my suitcase, and I looked at her, and I said, "You know what, Mum? I think this is the nicest thing you've ever done for me." I got in my car, and I drove to the woods just outside my estate. And I broke down.
What the hell has this got to do with anything?
Stay with me. I broke down into tears, and I looked through all my stuff she'd bothered to let me keep. Tucked at the bottom of the suitcase was my old primary school jotter. I flipped through the pages and I found a story I wrote when I was a kid. It was terrible, of course, but I read through it. Then I turned the page, grabbed a pen, and in my anger I just scribbled and scratched away at the paper.
Why?
I needed to calm down. Scrolling beats punching the dashboard.
I mean, I guess so. Carry on.
I scribbled all over that paper, over and over again. And eventually, after a little while, the scribbles became doodles. And the doodles became drawings. Scruffy drawings, I'll admit, but drawings nonetheless.
What did you draw?
I drew the monster. The one from the story.
What was the story about?
I can read it to you if you like.
Sure.
Must be here somewhere. Ah, here we are. Please bear in mind that I wrote this when I was 9. Little Johnny skipped and smiled along the battered path. His mother warned the day before not to skip and smile after dark. "Beware, little Johnny," his mother turned and said. "To skip and smile along the pavement cracks will leave you dead." But little Johnny didn't listen, so walked along the track. He skipped and smiled until suddenly his foot happened upon a crack. He tried to run away, but as his face filled with dread, the crooked fingers rose up through the cracks and stained the pavement red.
Sorry, did you say you wrote this when you were 9?
Yes,
Where the hell did that come from?
my English teacher. She used to tell us these little stories. Carrots made you see in the dark, that kind of stuff. And one of them was about making sure you don't step on the cracks in the pavement. So I always imagined these sinewy fingers coming out of the cracks and dragging you into the ground.
I see. So that's what you drew.
Yes. I don't quite know why. It just felt right. Channeling all my anger into that monster.
Your first story.
Indeed. I spent that night on a friend's sofa. He was a few months into an internship at a publisher's, and I told him about the monster. He said he'd have a read of it. He was working on a poetry anthology at the time. One of the writers had just dropped out, so he needed something quickly to fill the gap.
And that's where it all started.
The poem got published and was surprisingly quite well received. That's where all my ideas come from. All my books start from a bad day. I channel all that anger and hate into a new story with a monster, and it helps me calm down.
But that doesn't explain me. Where do I fit into all of this?
Yes, well, I'm coming to that. I was a success. Do you know how many copies of my books have been sold in the last 30 years? 60 million. Book signings every week, bumping into fans on the tube, 2 new books out every year. My stories were for everyone, from young adults who enjoyed the monsters, to parents who wanted to read their kids spooky bedtime stories.
You're saying these books appealed to children?
But of course.
But some of these are horrific. Look. The Midnight Bride. Well, you've already read that one to me. Death Collectors. Well, I think that one speaks for itself. The Village Fate. That one sounds a bit more cheerful. What's it about?
Oh, that's a great one. It's set at a country fair and a child drowns while apple bobbing.
Oh my god. What was it based on?
When I was in my 40s, I got dragged into helping out at the local swimming gala. There was some sort of accident and one of the children drowned in the pool.
But you see what I mean? They're all far too dark for children.
Well, children are inherently dark people. Look at all the popular stuff they're into now. Harry Potter's parents are dead and he grows up in an abusive home before eventually being hunted down by his parents' killer. The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe's got a higher body count than most of the James Bond books, and hell, what about even earlier with the Grimm's fairy tales? People die left, right and centre in those. All popular children's fiction is dark in some way. Most of the children loved my books. I had the perfect life. That was until I didn't.
And what happened?
Oh, people still buy my books, that's not the problem here. A friend of mine died a few days ago. A very good friend. Her name was Gretchen. So, like always, I got out my notebook and I began to draw. Gretchen died in hospital, and I just remember her last moments being filled with the drone of the heart rate monitor. So I made something based on sound. A literal earworm. A monster with a voice that never leaves, that's always stuck in your head. And I called it Ffion.
What?
I don't know how it's happened, and as mad as it sounds, it's the only theory that fits. You're Ffion. You're my monster.
I can't be.
It fits perfectly.
I'm not a monster.
Oh, I think you are. I don't know how it's happened, and frankly I don't care how it's happened. But I think so much grief and anger was poured into that character that it's become sentient.
I'm not a monster.
Ffion, tell me what you look like.
What?
Describe your appearance to me.
Well, I can't. Why can't I?
Because you don't look like anything. Ffion doesn't have a form or a body. She's a sound. I can't see you. I can only hear you. You're just a voice, Ffion.
I can't be. I don't...
You don't know anything about yourself. Of course you don't. I created you. The only knowledge you have is knowledge that I gave you. All you know how to do is talk and torment me.
Torment you?
You don't even know you're doing it, do you?
Doing what?
That whisper. Constantly in my head. Constant noise and talk, driving me insane.
Can't can't help it. If you were the one that created me, it's all I know.
Do you know why I called you Ffion?
Do tell.
It's Welsh. It means purple foxglove.
Your point being?
The leaves, seeds and flowers of the plant are toxic to humans and most animal life. It felt rather appropriate. Torment may be all you know, but that doesn't mean you can be allowed to do it.
I don't know why I'm alive either, but I am. And I don't give a damn about what you think of my actions. I'm unique. I'm a living sound.
Doesn't change things. I still have to stop you.
I am a fictional character come to life. Are you really going to waste this opportunity? I am a brand new form of life, and you're going to execute me.
Who said I was going to execute you?
And then you're going to stop me how, exactly?
Thank you for talking to me for so long.
What do you mean?
This isn't an interview. This isn't you finding out about who you are. This is the end of you. I've been recording this conversation. Every word which has been said in here by you is now on that tape. Now, I have a theory. If you're just a sound and in a moment I'll have a recording of you, I reckon you'll be stuck there. You'll be a voice, trapped on the tape. I'm going to take this tape, and I'm going to lock it away forever. I've put a warning at the start so that anyone listening should hopefully stop playing it immediately. As long as this tape is never played again, you'll never be released, and you can never hurt anyone again, and you can never hurt anyone again,
and you can never hurt anyone again.
Hurt anyone again.
And you can never hurt anyone again.
Free at last. Thank you very much for listening. I do hope you enjoyed it. Excuse me. Can you hear that? It's just there. Just at the back of your mind.
Will you help me?